Hello everybody, I am Baltmatrix, and today we are taking a look at Transformers Cyberverse Deluxe Snarl and Ultra Sludge. This is from the Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures line, and apparently from Season 4, but Season 4 hasn't even been announced yet, so okay then. I picked Snarl up over at Amazon.com. It is available for pre-order over at the Big Bad Toy Store and other locations. The figure comes with two accessories, this little yellow sword and a tail. You can mount both of them in robot mode. I'll show you that in a moment. The overall aesthetic of the figure is okay. It is definitely Snarl, but it feels not great in the hand. Head sculpt is pretty darn good, though. That is definitely Snarl, and it works well. I do love the chest coloring. It's it's an homage to, one, his dinosaur mode, because his chest looks like the head of the dinosaur, and two, the original Generation 1 figure. And I'm sorry, I said deluxe class. This is a warrior class figure, and it's utterly dwarfed by a current deluxe class Transformer. And this is a Transformer from last year, too. It's so tiny. It feels so tiny. Let's see, what about his brother? Yep, still dwarfed even by his brother. Snarl's posability is pretty good, but the robot mode, when you turn it around, is completely hollow for the transformation. I'm kind of okay with that. Posability, head is on a swivel that is very tight, ball joint in the shoulder, hinge at the elbow, also a ball joint at the elbow, both are for the transformation, no fist articulation. There is no torso swivel, ball joint in the hip, very, very loose knee, not as bad as Sludge, but it's still not great. And then there's no foot articulation. It can wield its accessories. One accessory can be wielded in his hand, and that is a great homage to the original Generation 1 figure. Well, at least the sword part anyway. I wish it was red. It really should be red. The giant tail unit can peg into the peg on his back, though it does make the figure exceptionally top-heavy. The other thing you could do with it is peg it into this peg on his left hip to act as a sheath for the sword. I'm sorry, since when was Snarl a knight? I get what they're going for here, but it's so stupid. Like, it's just okay, well, we added a peg so you could put the sword, or you could store it somewhere. That's just so dumb. And it's not good dumb. It's dumb. It's so dumb that he can't even put his arm down all the way dumb. Speaking of weird, he has a gimmick, and that is a sword slashing gimmick. You pose the arm in a certain way while holding the actual peg in place, and then you pull the peg down and push it up, and he has a slashing gimmick. I mean, as gimmicks go, it's not the worst in the world, but I'm not a fan of it, and neither is my 7-year-old. Yes, I actually showed this to my 7-year-old, and he said, and I quote, "That's dumb, Daddy." And because I'm only 14, yes, you can do that. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's get into the transformation. To start the transformation, simply grab the legs and push them together as far as they will go. Turn the figure upside down and fold those legs up, and the heels will collapse into the cavity that's on his lower back. Flip the dino heads in and smush them together, then fold the front dino legs down. Like that. And then we have a half a dinosaur. Now, for the rear legs, put the arms straight forward like so. Turn the hands, or turn the arms so that the fists and the dino arms are pointing towards the front of the dino mode, and then collapse the elbows up into the shoulder. So turn, collapse, and pose. And then we grab the tail accessory, flip the guard part out, and then this whole section just drops right on top of the back while putting the head into the cavity there and getting everything lined up. Biggest problem I have is this chunk is initially disconnected from the entire tail section in the packaging. It's also made of incredibly soft plastic. So, getting everything lined up is a bit of a challenge. I end up having to half untransform it first, pull the backpack section over, get it in place, and then pray that I could get the other part transformed back into place. Now, if you're thinking, oh, well, you should be able to store the sword somewhere, you can't. You just gotta leave it off to the side, because the head takes up the area where the sword would go, and there's nowhere to peg the sword in except on the outside of the hand like that, and that just looks stupid. The dino mode we end up with is okay. It feels underpainted, but otherwise, it's alright. It is a tiny little Stegosaurus. The head sculpt on the Stegosaurus is pretty good. I wish the mouth opened and closed, but it doesn't. The paint feels like, well, it feels like it could use another coat of paint on the head, but that's something I could do myself. And I would really like to actually paint the inside of the head so you don't have this dark line going across the top of the head. That would be nice. Overall, dino mode, it's okay. It's not the biggest thing in the world. I mean, here's the same Sunstreaker. He could practically ride it a little bit. Not really, though. Just getting Sunstreaker to ride this thing is not great. So this is Snarl. Flawed, but not awful. We've definitely had worse figures in the Cyberverse line. Now, let's take a look at Sludge. Ultra Class Sludge was purchased over at the Big Bad Toy Store, and it is still currently in stock at the time of this recording. The paint on the robot mode is a little bit more minimal than Snarl, but it's weird. The flanks of the figure are painted bright cherry red, but everything else is in these mute grays. The chest works incredibly well for me. I wish there was a little bit more detailing, but that I can do myself, and it is a nice nod to the original Generation 1 figure. The head sculpt is pretty good in this kind of candy apple blue, which I was not expecting, but it kind of makes sense given the gimmick. The figure comes with one accessory, and that is the tail of his dinosaur mode that turns into this really big spear that he can only kinda sorta hold. You can get it into his hand, but it's too heavy for his one hand, and it just has a tendency to fall. If you put it in his right hand, it works. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it has a tendency to break also. Really easily, but it goes back together easily as well. Now, something I do like about the spear is, well, I don't like the fact that it's hollow, but I do like the fact that you can half transform it, and there is enough tension in the peg to allow this into a hammer, a war hammer. That works for me. Hammer, and then the other side is a war pick. And then you just flip it up, and you got your spear again. Transformation back into tail mode is very simple. Just collapse the handle and fold it up into the tail. Easy. My figure is a whole lot of mess when it comes to the hips. These hip ball joints are far too loose. There are hinges in the legs, but thankfully they lock into place. No foot articulation. Arms are on ball joints and then hinges, and they hinge for the transformation. Ball joint in the elbows. No head articulation, but there is torso articulation. The reason the head doesn't move is because of the Energon energy thingy gimmick. Energon armor gimmick. Take the entire backpack, fold it out of the way, and slide it down. And then you'll get flip out armor that only protects his head and chest. No, like from front on. Forget about side impacts or back impacts, and oh wow, you could fit a Titan's Master in there. I wasn't even joking. You could literally fit an entire Titan's Master in there. Heck, you could probably fit 3. At this point, I kinda hate this Energon armor gimmick. It just compromises the figure so much, and you lose all the detailing and the molding that's actually in the armor. There's a lot in there, and if it was painted better and not just clear plastic, it would look so much better. And I love the helmet. It's a dinosaur. But good luck trying to actually make out any of the, in poor lighting, good luck trying to make out any of that detail. I mean, hell, you could barely see the figure in there. Heck, I think he's screaming. It looks like he's screaming while he's in there. Folding the armor back up is pretty easy. Just push up, it'll auto-fold, and then flip up the little crotch protector, fold it all back, and then slide the backpack up and over, and you're done. This figure just feels like poorly designed. I want it to be so much better, but it is for children. It is for children, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Enough complaining, let's get into the transformation. To start with, take the arms and fold them up on those hinges. That will then allow us to grab the back wings and flip them around and peg them into place. Bring the arms back down. Then we could grab the dinosaur head, which is detached in the packaging. You have to reattach it and flip it up. And there's a big old tab that'll peg in a tab hole right in front of the chest. And you know what? I just realized, does this remind you of Power of the Primes at all? Does for me. Anyway, this is actually the hardest part of the transformation, because getting this pegged in requires way more force than I'm actually comfortable with using on this figure. Then take the arms and flip the fists up into the forearms and rotate them around and just pose them so you have some nice dinosaur arms. And we are done the front. Now we'll move on to the back of the dino mode. Take the legs and snap them together, and take the entire hip section and lower torso, turn it around 180 degrees, flip up the legs, and just snap everything into place. Fold the dino feet down, or rotate the dino feet down. Now, for the tail, when you combine the legs together, there is this little hook, or little tab, that then this tail will tab into. And what you want to do is flip out the bottom of the spear so that you can rotate, so that, well, it's so that you can actually get it pegged in. These pegs don't actually peg into anything, so they will just rest on the inside of the legs, and then push the tail down and it'll snap into place. Fold that up, and here we have the Apatosaurus mode. And I think the Apatosaurus mode works. Again, it's missing paint. It just is. But there's nothing a little bit of panel lining won't fix. And by a little, I mean a lot. But I do appreciate that they at least gave us like this detailing here on the side, and they painted at least the red and the outside spikes. There's a lot of design here that's actually pretty good, but it's just wasted on all this monochrome. Like, look, you've got on the tail, you've got this gold, but it's not continued anywhere else on the figure except for the head. It would have been great if they could have continued that gold up along the back and then maybe stopped up here and then had the head. But they didn't. Speaking of the head, it's pretty good. It's very stylized. It's a very stylized dinosaur head that makes it look like a meat eater, even though this dinosaur was a plant eater. And its mouth can open way farther than I thought. So it can totally just come in and be like, and eat a Decepticon, which is a nice feature. I appreciate that level of violence in my toys. Overall, the dinosaur mode it's okay. It's not perfect. Can it be ridden? Yes, it can be ridden by another Transformer, a whole lot easier than Snarl can be. However, getting that other Transformer to sit on his curved back correctly without falling off is a bit of a challenge. Ironically, it's easier to get Snarl in Dino mode to sit on top of Sludge than it is any other robot. Both of these figures are just okay. I think they're not great for the price point, but when you compare them to Warrior Class Grimlock, their flaws really start to add up. Grimlock is a Warrior Class figure, but his transformation is much more involved than either of these two, and I would argue that the dinosaur mode is vastly more successful than what we've ended up with Sludge and Snarl here. Yeah, it's not as big as Sludge, and it's actually kind of towering over Snarl, but I feel like Grimlock succeeds in the paint department, the transformation department, and the fun department, where these two fall a little bit short. Even in robot mode, these figures feel completely different, and they actually feel like they're from separate lines. Grimlock especially. Snarl is almost dwarfed by Grimlock, while Sludge is appropriately larger, but Sludge feels like he's from a different toy line because of the plastic. Same with Snarl. Oh, and the fact that Sludge can't seem to stand all the time. Now, one thing I do appreciate is with Snarl and Sludge versus Grimlock is both of these two guys, their legs stay on. My poor Grimlock's ball joints, especially right here at the hips, while tight, pop off way too easily. Like, I just picked the figure up earlier and his right leg fell off. So there is that. But if I zoom in here for just a second, you can see the detailing that's on this Warrior class Grimlock versus the Warrior class Snarl. There just seems to be more love and attention added to Grimlock than to Snarl. I'm not saying Snarl's bad, but it just feels like Snarl got the short end of the stick, and that really does kind of feel like that with the Dinobots in general. Poor Snarl's always forgotten about. He wasn't even in the movie, for crying out loud. Now that I've got these two in hands, I am cautiously optimistic for Slug and Swoop. We have already seen pictures of Slug. He'll be coming maybe a little later this year. Haven't seen anything for Swoop yet. I'm not even sure Swoop is going to be getting a figure. But there is plenty of promotional material for Season 4 out there, so who knows? It might be coming to Amazon or it might be coming to Netflix. We don't know yet. And if you know, let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, let me know what you think of these figures. Let me know what you think of Cyberverse in general. Let me think of me, Grimlock. Actually, Grimlock was probably my favorite character from Cyberverse. He was so good. It was so refreshing to see him be smart. Anyway, these figures aren't terrible. They are made for children, though. They are not made for adult collectors. That being said, even my 7-year-old doesn't want to play with these. He doesn't like them because they don't turn into cars and trucks. That's a him thing, not a me thing. And let's face it, dinosaurs were a lot more popular in the 80s than they are in 2021. Even though they are still cool. Alright folks, I've been Baltmatrix. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And while you're at it, try and have a great day. Bye!